21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
I'm Britt Gottschalk. I'm the founder and CEO of Me. And we empower people to take greater control over their health data because we believe that people own their health data. Data transparency is so important when it comes to advancing medical outcomes in the clinical research space. Because there's so much data out there, being able to filter what's valuable and what's not, that can get really complex. We make that simple. We connect electronic medical records with genetic and genomic reports and allow our users, our contributors, to share that data with the populations that can do the most with it, meaning research institutions, clinical research facilities, pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, and health clinics. And while all of that research is being developed, our users get compensated for access to their data. So not only are you helping accelerate and promote a change that could be groundbreaking and life-saving, but you're also getting compensated for it, for what's rightfully yours. You're being a good owner and a good steward of your health data. When I started my journey of being an entrepreneur, I first had to come to the realization that, I myself was probably a little bit insane, because who becomes an entrepreneur? It's the people that are crazy. At least that's what I thought. I did not go to school to become a biostatistician, a clinician, a genomics researcher, none of that. I went to school for psychology because I loved people and I loved solving problems. And it just so happened that there's a huge need for that in corporate America. So I became a management consultant. I went to grad school, got my dual master's degrees in business administration and industrial organizational psychology. And I started working with teams, the frontline, middle management, and executive level in healthcare, finance, and insurance, in industries traditionally in the US that have a lot of areas for improvement because of antiquated processes. And it was through that journey, you have to work for someone else in order to be able to figure out the problems so you can work for yourself. At least that was the way that I viewed it. During that journey, that's how I became an entrepreneur. I didn't come out here just thinking I was going to do that. I had to find the problems to solve, had to find the people that wanted me to solve the problems. And essentially, that's how I got here today. As I started my career journey throughout the management consulting world, focused on primarily project management, process improvement. I had a background in Lean Six Sigma as well. And, as you get into the world of, my world was corporate America, you think that coming fresh out of grad school, fresh out of school, oh yeah, everybody's going to want to solve these problems. Everybody's going to listen to my ideas. I know what's going on. And you don't know anything. You really don't know anything when you get into that world. And the first day on the job, you learn that. Essentially, that's what happened to me. And so, I worked with teams that were totally change averse, that were a little bit frightened of what could be coming, down the road for them because of a multitude of things. It could be a lack of communication, a lack of job certainty, a lack of understanding what the change is going to mean for them. And in a lot of those experiences, I was trying to balance what it meant to what values meant to somebody who's on the front line, who wanted to keep their job, who wanted a pay raise, and justifying that to somebody who is a CEO who might have been more focused on, the numbers versus the people, wanting the bonus instead of keeping people on staff. And so, I got put in a lot of difficult positions when it came to, relaying my ideas, where I'm trying to create this harmony between, frontline, middle management, and executive teams. And a lot of times I'm going through this, even though I had the degrees, there were people that were senior, that were tenured. They didn't want to listen to me. And it had nothing to necessarily do with the fact that I had the degrees. It had everything to do with the fact that I was green. I had no experience. I didn't know what was going on in that industry. And it was very, very difficult to relate to people that had been working in a position for 20 something years. And so a lot of my time that was spent as a management consultant, I can't say I look upon that favorably because there was so much tension and there were so many days of just, getting up to go and do the job. But the thing that kept me going was learning about how I could do something better, even though I was not being embraced with some of my ideas. I might have been getting ignored or passed over. These were all things that I was looking at as an experiment. What could I try? Uh, and then eventually got to a point where I was so unhappy with the battle constantly, I decided I was going to start my own business. And so that's when I really started looking at the experience that I had in those industries as being more of just a learning experience to try to find what some of those processes or those problems were that needed fixing so that I could start my own business and go ahead and get clients and solve them. And so, I really did start a business out of being disgruntled. I was very upset with the way that things were going, and I didn't feel like things were going to get any easier. And so I decided to quit in the midst of a pandemic. I started my first business, and it was a consulting firm. And that's not the business that I have now. But again, I had to go through like those mistakes, those failures to understand what it meant to get to this point where I've started my second business, Geno Me, and understand what it means to be successful and how to continue to cultivate that. When I, started my first business, it was primarily about, having the flexibility, having the financial freedom, and being able to do essentially what I wanted to do, and which was going to be different from what everybody else was doing because it was going to be so much better. And so that really drove me to dive deep into some of the problems that I already uncovered. And my first business focused on helping teams with the remote work transition during COVID. And that was a fantastic learning experience. And I call it that because about a year into it, as I'm helping some teams, it was enough business to keep the lights on, but it wasn't anything that I was proud of or that I felt like I was willing to or going to be able to sustain just because it wasn't going to pay the bills long term. It just wasn't sustainable. A lot of the materials that were coming out from, McKinsey and Company and Deloitte, it was just hard as a consultant to try to keep up with that. So that was devastating because it was essentially like a dream at that point because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. I can work for myself. I'm actually doing something that I feel like is rewarding, not just cashing a paycheck or clocking hours. And I was faced with the decision of having to close my business. And I had about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months left of runway. And it was at that time that I humbled myself and I had to go talk to the people that were my clients, my advisors. And I'm like, what are some bigger problems that you're facing that you feel like, I could deep dive into that I could solve because I don't want to go back to working for someone else. Like I have to figure out how to make this entrepreneurship life work. I'm willing to do that, but I need to know what are going to be some of those sustainable problems that I can build a business model on. And so that I was talking to my friends in the clinical research space, my advisors there too, and they're talking about this data accessibility issue is just a nightmare. We're talking about just health data, electronic medical records, the thing that you get when you go to the doctor, they log, how your visit went. And a lot of the providers, Epic, Cerner, the main ones, a lot of the times those systems don't talk to each other. So being able to transfer any kind of medical data between just hospitals, if they're not on the same system, was just a complete nightmare and unrealistic, and so much gets lost in translation. So that's the rabbit hole that I ended up going down, and I was like, maybe there's a way we can address this. And, you know, a lot of the information I was finding was not consumer centric. It was not patient centric, even though it is a patient's medical record. And so started digging a little bit deeper, trying to figure out what other information is out there that we know contributes to clinical research outcomes. Okay, we've got genetics data. That's pretty new. The biotechnology industry, that's got a huge market cap. Okay, maybe there's a play where we can marry that data, right? That EHR data, the biotech industry with the genetic and genomics data. Come to find out, you know, there's a lot of research that's done around rare conditions and oncology that focus primarily on those two data points. So the last piece of it was figuring out how to commercialize that. How do we get people like Joe Sixpack to want to join a platform like this to increase the sharing of data and essentially decentralize it? So that's where the payment piece came in, to be able to compensate people directly for access to their data, because these medical researchers, they, you know, the healthcare industry is worth trillions of dollars here in the US, and they're not they're not broke, right? So it's a matter of figuring out how to get the money from the outcomes they're developing from data that's already being collected on us and looping in the consumer into that process. And that's how the Genome business model was born, where we paid people for access to their data because of the payments that researchers were making. I pitched that to an investor for, you know, a seed round. I started a seed round, got into the VC world. So there's no way I was going to build this platform with just my little 4 months of runway left that I had for myself. And I decided, okay, let me go and pitch it, and raise a seed round for $500,000. The first pitch that I gave, actually, we got 400,000 of that. And then I had a couple angel investors come into the pot, a couple friends of mine, thank goodness, to close out the round. And that's how Genome was born. I closed down my first company, and we started development in August of 2021. From the burst of business that I had, and also from my days in consulting, I learned pretty quickly that, you know, you have to make sure that you are sustainable. Means get in revenue as much as quickly and as much as possible, based on what you know, right? And so that's really how you build that sustainable business. And looking at a cash burn in the way where it's like, you know, you are a consultant, you essentially have to kill what you eat every month, and not being wasteful when it comes to those dollars. And especially like looking at it now is, okay, we secured an investment. How do we build a platform that is going to be, you know, ready to go, going to have the functionality that we need to get to the next round of funding, and then also to be able to prove the traction that we needed. And so during that time, you know, I learned a lot from my previous business, because it's being smart with your money. And especially when you start to get into the startup world, and it's a tech startup world, you know, cash at the time, it was, you know, 2022, 2023, after we had closed our first investment, you know, cash wasn't flowing like it was before in Silicon Valley and in the VC world. And so you had to be smart about and resourceful about like how we were going about building the platform. How are we going to connect to these different health systems? How much money is that going to cost per month? What are the data storage charges, right? And on top of that, it was also convincing people to buy into an idea, because this was an idea up until about the end of 2022. So we had to create the platform, you know, build a beta model, launch that, show everybody that we could do it, proof of concept. And then we went all the way through 2023, essentially proving out, okay, testing the platform, making sure the security certifications, privacy certifications were there. The data is actually coming through and it's being protected, and people are getting the data that they're saying they're buying. And during that process too, I was fundraising. So throughout 2022 and 2023, that was for our seed 2 round, which was for 3.25 million. So on top of balancing getting people to buy into an idea, showing pilot groups that we were working with, this is how this works, and ultimately hashing out the rest of the business model for how contributors are going to get paid, how are research organizations going to subscribe to the platform. We also had to show enough traction to be able to raise that money. And so you really start to understand more about how you can survive by being smart when it comes to being resourceful, what your burn is every month, how you're going to continue to build operations, but scaling in the way that is not going to devastate your team, burn them out, because you only have so many resources for a small team. And at the time, my team was about 8 people. And so you have to be able to balance all of those different things. And so going into it where we were able to kind of get over that hump, and now we're here in 2024. The whole mindset around the company now is growth and scale. So I get asked a lot, like, why I do what I do. And, I am, just a girl from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that cared a lot about people. And I was raised with like a really hard work ethic. My dad was blue collar, worked any kind of job you could get. My mom typically was unemployed. She suffered from a lot of mental illness. So that work ethic was instilled in me very early on. I had my first job when I was 15, and it was being able to do any kind of odd job that I could. It was stuffing envelopes at City Hall, or maybe I was going to be able to lifeguard or teach swim lessons. I also worked as a manual laborer at a sewage district. So I was never afraid of any kind of hard work because I always knew that it was rewarding, and there was nothing better to me than being able to essentially write my own ticket to be able to afford the life that I wanted and to be able to make a difference for other people. And so when I look at how that relates to what I'm doing at GenoMe, it really is about being able to make the world a better place if you have the means and the resources to do it. And I've been very fortunate enough to be able to do that with my experience, my ability to learn very quickly and adapt to different situations, and looking at how we can really change the landscape of what it means to get people like you and me involved in clinical research, and also getting people to be able to afford the necessities of life, because this is something we can all do. To be able to get to a place where they're making that kind of passive income, we're able to provide new and intriguing and different types of therapies, whether it's pharmacogenomics or gene therapies. This is something that we can do, and we've already started proving out the model. When we hit the market and started advertising the platform at the end of 2023, early 2024. It was about a 6-week marketing promo where we just told people to come in, check out the platform, and sign up. In 6 weeks, we went from only friends and family, about 70 contributors, to 1,500. And that was at a closed marketing promotion. And these are people that were from all over the US. I'm talking about every single state. And we had some people from Canada coming in there too. And these are people that are interested about contributing their data to make a difference, and also being able to make a little bit more money on the side. So we're at 1,500 right now. We're hoping that, towards the end of the year or early next year, we're looking about 50,000 to 100,000 contributors. And we're very excited about the growth on that scale. If you want to learn more about GenoMe, or if you want a demo of the platform, anything, you just want to have a conversation, you can go ahead and send me an email at britt@yourgeno.me. Or you can visit our website, www.yourgeno.me.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskarik. connecting with listeners in 95 countries, and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.